The person in that picture is named Najat Al-Kalani, and she is a perfect example of people who are completely devoid of conscience and empathy. She is supposed to be a mother, but in reality, she knows nothing about maternal feelings, neither remotely nor closely. In 2015, in one of the villages in Upper Egypt, Najat left her house in the morning to start selling products in her grocery store, as she did every day. People and neighbors were accustomed to buying their necessities from Najat's store every morning, and all the villagers knew and interacted together as one family because this is the nature of village life. After half an hour of opening her store, Najat asked one of her neighbors to go to her apartment to wake up Najat's children so they could come to the store and have breakfast with her. Her children were a girl named Aya, who was 8 years old, and Muhammad, who was 5 years old. The neighbor of Najat went towards the house and kept knocking on the door, but without any response from the children for minutes. Therefore, the neighbor went back to Najat's store, where she tested Najat's chances of her children sleeping. So, Najat continued her work in the store, and after half an hour, she decided to go back home to wake up her children herself this time. She asked the owners of nearby stores to take care of her store until she returned. Upon reaching home and opening the door, Najat was shocked to find her children's bodies slaughtered, with their blood scattered throughout the living room. This caused Najat to start screaming loudly, completely devastated. People gathered, shocked by what they saw, as the killer not only slaughtered the children but also completely severed their heads from their bodies. Najat continued screaming, saying that her children were slaughtered because of inheritance issues, and everyone present in this situation understood what Najat meant by this statement she kept repeating. Now, let's take a moment to understand who Najat Al-Kalani is. Najat Al-Kalani originally comes from a village far from the village where her children were killed. Her children died in the house of her second husband, whom we will discuss later. When Najat was 19 years old, she married her first husband. She was a very greedy and selfish person, always demanding her husband to bring her everything she desired regardless of his financial ability. She would constantly hide some money without his knowledge. When she found out that her husband's financial situation was not as good as she expected, her behavior towards him worsened. When she turned 22, she requested a divorce from him, and they indeed divorced. She left her daughter from him with her husband and his family and left the house. 6 months after her divorce from her first husband, she met a man named Hajj Ramadan, who was 62 years old and wealthy with properties. Najat decided to marry him, and indeed she married him. Hajj Ramadan owned a house and a set of shops in his name, and Najat made sure of that so she wouldn't enter into a marriage relationship with him without achieving her goal, which was money. However, Hajj Ramadan's family was not at all happy about his marriage to Najat. They were not entirely comfortable with her and also saw her as deceitful and exploitative, and they were right in their assessment. However, in the end, he married her without interference from his family. Najat tried to conceive quickly after their marriage, especially to have a male child so that she could inherit a lot of property through him upon the division of the inheritance after Hajj Ramadan's death, as per Egyptian law, which grants males a larger share of the inheritance compared to females. Indeed, she gave birth, but initially, she had a daughter named Aya. During this time, her relationship with her husband's family was very poor. Meanwhile, Hajj Ramadan divided the house he owned in half, with the first half going to his son from his first wife and the second half where Najat and her daughter Aya lived. After a short period, Najat gave birth to her second child, but this time she had a son, as she desired, and named him Muhammad. After some time, Najat convinced Haj Ramadan to register his shop under the names of her children, Aya and Muhammad, claiming that she wanted to secure their rights as they were the youngest in the family regarding inheritance. Haj Ramadan indeed did so. From that moment, problems between Haj Ramadan and his eldest son from his first wife, who objected to his father's action of registering the shop under Najat's children's names, began to escalate. Years passed, and Haj Ramadan aged, continuing his trade in his shop with Najat, who started dealing directly with customers. Among these customers was a man named Naba Awad, who was 40 years old at the time, married with 5 children, and used to stop by Haj Ramadan's shop every day before going to work to buy breakfast. It was clear that he was interested in Najat, and at the same time, Najat would flirt with him excessively because she was actually attracted to him as well, but neither of them had expressed their feelings for each other yet. However, there were emotions between them, and they both knew it very well. During this period, Haj Ramadan's relationship with his eldest son, Ahmed, was almost completely severed, and Ahmed's relationship with his siblings Aya and Muhammad was very weak, which was evident to everyone, all of whom knew that the reason for this dispute was inheritance. When Haj Ramadan reached the age of 71, he died a natural death. From that moment, real disputes over inheritance began. Najat seemed unaffected by her husband's death and continued to conduct business in the shop on a daily basis. At the same time, an illicit relationship developed between Naba and Najat in secret. Within a year and a half after Haj Ramadan's death, Naba began to visit Najat's house almost daily without entering through the door but by climbing the adjacent roofs until he reached the roof of her house and entered through the window of her apartment to avoid being seen by people and neighbors. Najat intentionally left the window open for him. They would spend the entire night together in the living room, engaging in an illicit relationship while her children Muhammad and Aya slept in their room. As time passed, people began to notice the relationship between Naba and Najat. When Ahmed, Haj Ramadan's son, learned about it, he felt that his father's widow would bring shame upon him and that his siblings would live with a stigma for the rest of their lives because of what their mother, Najat, was doing. Therefore, he asked Naba to completely end his relationship with Najat. He also spoke to Naba's elder sisters to prevent Naba from continuing his actions with Najat. However, despite this, his relationship with Najat continued, but through him entering Najat's house while he was hidden so that people would not see him entering her house. Until one day Naba came to Najat's house, and while they were having an illicit sexual relationship in the living room of her house on the floor, her son Muhammad, who was 5 years old, woke up because of their voice and left his room and was surprised to see his mother with Naba in a disturbing situation, and of course because he was young. He did not understand what was happening, but all he was surprised by was the presence of Naba in their house, so he said that the next morning he would call his older brother Ahmed and tell him what he saw, and so Naba was afraid of the scandal in front of all the people. So he grabbed a knife that was on the table and held it and slaughtered Muhammad in front of the eyes of his mother, Najat, who did nothing but watch that scene. While Muhammad was weakly resisting Naba, 8-year-old Aya woke up and left her room. When she saw her brother, Naba separated his head from his body to make sure that he was completely dead. Najat asked Naba to slaughter her daughter Aya as well because she had witnessed Naba killing her brother and because she was definitely going to inform her older brother about what had happened. So Naba also killed Aya, and separated her head from her body. After that, Naba escaped after he agreed with Najat that she would scream the next morning and accuse Ahmed, the son of Haj Ramadan, of killing them for the inheritance, so they would not be exposed. Najat was happy with that plan and actually implemented it, and Najat remained next to the bodies of her slaughtered son and daughter for 5 hours, until morning came, from 2 p.m. to 7 a.m. After that, she left the house naturally in front of people to pursue her business, and everything I mentioned at the beginning of the story happened. However, people could not believe that Ahmed, the son of Hajj Ramadan, could do that. When the policemen arrived, along with the men from the forensic laboratory, they knew that there were no signs of violence when the perpetrator entered the house. They knew that there were no signs of theft. They also knew that the killing of them had taken place more than 8 hours ago, and this raised a question: how could Najat be at home at 7 a.m. and not see her son and daughter slaughtered? Therefore, the idea of theft was completely ruled out. And also, after investigating eyewitnesses and Ahmed, the idea of Ahmed killed them was ruled out as well. The information about Naba's connection to Najat reached the police, so she was summoned and interrogated. She confessed to everything that had happened that day and confessed to Naba that he was the one who slaughtered them. Therefore, Naba was arrested, who at first denied everything she said about him, but with pressure on him during the investigations, he confessed that he was the one who slaughtered Muhammad, but the one who slaughtered Aya was Najat. Therefore, they were sentenced to death by hanging, as is the punishment in Egyptian laws. And as usual, see you in the next video.